Hello. We're trying to connect with Mike. Something's wrong with his mic and camera, probably. So if he's not gonna um jump in, yeah, his devices are still disconnected. I don't know what's happening. It's such an easy program that we use. Let's just wait for him to maybe start over and try to connect again. So, anyways, hope you guys have a good weekend. Today we were going to talk about mining with Mike. We had a chat recently about mining, and so that probably was not that long ago. How can you hear me, by the way? Write me in the chat. Because we have a little delay, I will see you write this message after a couple of seconds. Something's wrong. Okay, I'll just try to. How can you hear me, guys? Anyone in the chat, just write me audio good. Okay, so I'll just start with this screen sharing, I guess, of the ancient mining evidence that I was talking about. Let's see. Mic is still disconnected. Okay. Let's try to just, add this to the stream. So this is what I was, doing videos recently, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Recently, we're talking about this with Mike, and he was talking about hydraulic mining and stuff like this. So I don't know what's actually the case this time, but this is looking like a concrete pasta, the byproduct of leaching metals, and it still has this structure of these layers and stuff like this. And somewhere we can see still streams of water, which could indicate that the drill holes are still working, and we see water comes from under pressure from underground. No, mic is not yet connected. And so the problem could be is that a bunch of those sites worldwide, and so Mike is also researching. He was actually talking about hydraulic mining, and I wanted to present him the other types of mining so he can take a look also. Okay, another type of mining is so-called ball mill grinding. So this is like huge mills, huge complexes that use these actual mills that are inside of these huge facilities. And they use them to grind all the ore, all these, all those products that they mine to produce like a powder stuff, and so they can easily extract the different metals that they want from this powder. So it's like a very huge place. As you can see, the mills are enormous, and this is the scale of modern times. The mills are filled with those rocks, or grinding balls, as they call it. Those type of formations could be found worldwide. And for example, these bowls found near Bosnia pyramids. And they're pretty huge bowls, as you can see, comparing to the person. Okay. And this is how this mill actually is working in the lab. As you can see, these are the bowls that grind the powder. And so he's shutting it down, and then it rotates. And when it's over, it looks like type of separation unit. So he can separate big particles from the small particles and so on. Let's take a break a little. As you can see, this is very interesting. Let's see if Mike did actually come. Yes, we can see him. Hello, Mike. We have 4 mics.
I think I have.
Hey, Mike.
So screwed up.
Yeah, I can see you now.
Does everything look right? Or do I need to close some stuff? Because it looks like I got StreamYard opened up about 8 times.
Yeah, I kicked you out a couple of times, man.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how all this works.
Just shut down. I see you have like a StreamYard browser also open.
Yeah, I hope I don't close the wrong one here. Let me try to close these things out.
Yeah, I was thinking it was very easy one.
I don't know what happened there. I don't think we had problems the last time we tried this.
Yeah. I think you have another thing open also. Why do I see your screen? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, because let me, like I said before, I'm a real rookie at this.
Well, whatever. Let it be like this, so we can, continue, because you're gonna be presenting your screen, so that'll be fine.
Okay.
Just leave it like this.
All right, let's.
So I was trying to say that you are researching the hydraulic mining, and we had a chat before. So I wanted to present the types of mining I was talking about before, because when I asked you haven't heard of them or something like this before, or maybe I'm wrong. And then we probably continue to talk what you've been talking about. And the interesting thing is gold, natural gold form in the shape of this cave system that you showed in Facebook. Very interesting subject to talk about, I think. And maybe you have some more evidence we can share to the people. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Are you seeing my?
Yep, I see your screen. Yeah.
So we're all looking good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me. Oh, go ahead.
So I was just, trying to present my screen also. So do you see my screen? Right now?
No. It's probably because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, probably you messing around. Okay, let's just continue with your stuff, and maybe you figure it out later. I think you got so many browsers open. That's probably the problem.
I don't know what's going on.
You got so many windows.
I think the older you get, the more computer stupid you become, and I've reached a point where I'm not sure how to use all of these things.
Okay, let's just stop on the picture of cave system versus gold. Can you find it for us? And start with this point first.
Wait, what do you mean by cave system?
Cave system. You showed the
cave. Okay.
Cave system.
Okay, we could start looking at some caves. I think a lot of people are, at least some people are familiar with fulgurites. And what a fulgurite is when lightning from a thunderstorm hits the ground, it changes the ground into something else. And so, like when lightning hits sand, it turns sand into glass. And these fulgurites down here are, these are examples of lightning fulgurites. And some of them can be kind of big, like the one on the bottom right almost looks like a river system, doesn't it?
It sure does. Or root system.
And if you look inside this, the one on the top left that's got the red on there, if you kind of look on the inside, you can see how things are just kind of morphed and melted into other things. And sand is really nothing more than waste.
Can you magnify it a little bit so we can see, because we have like 2 screens of yours. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of them, when you look at them, they're real glassy and look real interesting on the inside, and some of them are just kind of boring and look kind of brown. And I think the kind of fulgurite appearance that you get depends on what the material was that the lightning struck in the first place. So the more interesting things you got in there, the more interesting of a fulgurite you're going to get. The picture on the top is a mineral called malachite, or
we call it malachite.
Yeah, whatever it's called. It's a mineral, and when you look at this picture of a ceiling of a cave in the bottom, you'll see that it looks kind of similar. So it seems to me that this is probably not the. I think I got this not in the best order. It seems to me that plasma created these things. That these things are melted. That these things are melted electrically. And if you look at some caves, you'll see that many of them look like laser ablation. Some of these pictures you got to kind of study them real carefully and look real close at the details, and you can see they look pretty similar. So it seems to me this cave there was created by a giant lightning bolt, by a giant bolt of plasma that carved out that cave. And here's a better picture of that cave. I'm not sure where that cave is located at. And on the right is a picture of laser ablation. Now, when the laser hits material, it creates certain formations. And when you compare the formations in laser ablation to caves, to volcanoes, and to different landforms, you see that a lot of them look almost exactly the same. Because I think what created this here was electricity, was plasma. And what created the features on the laser ablation was plasma from a laser. This one here is a cave wall in Germany, and it has these really interesting features. And if you look at this, the bottom picture, you'll see that it looks kind of similar. And what the bottom one is, that's another one that's hard to pronounce. That is where a power line fell on the ground and electricity arced into the ground. And it melted the soil and caused the rocks in the soil to melt together and create that formation, which to me looks kind of like that cave. And this is another example of a cave that looks like laser ablation. This is a cave in Illinois. And if you look real close at it, it just kind of has the same kind of characteristics.
Yeah, looks the same.
And here's this another view of this thing. This cave really doesn't go very far. It just kind of goes into the wall. And the one on the left here, I'm not sure where that's at, but it sure does look interesting to me. And the ones on the right are different things that I think were created by the laser. The one in the top right is an example of laser ablation, modern day stuff that we do with lasers. And the one on the right is below the ground where the World Trade Center towers stood. And this is the cave here in Chile. And this is another very interesting formation somewhere. I'm not sure where it's at, but I think these features were created by a laser. Same kind of device that might create this cave right here. If you look at this cave in China, which I believe is supposed to be the world's largest cave where a 747 could fit into. And to me, it looks like a fulgurite. Looks exactly like a fulgurite. And here's another cave. This one's in New Mexico. And to me, it looks kind of similar to those other caves where it looks like laser ablation, where the plasma went through the ground right there and melted all that out and left the walls looking the same way that a laser did right here.
Okay.
Some caves, if you kind of look at them, they begin to look like lightning bolts. And this cave over here in Australia, if you look at a 3D image map of the cave, it kind of looks like this lightning fulgurite over here, because that's what this cave is. It's a fulgurite. It's a fulgurite created when the directed energy weapon impacted the ground and created that structure, but just on a much larger scale. It's the same kind of thing.
So how is it empty through the volume?
What's that?
Is it empty everywhere inside? I mean, those fulgurites.
A good question would be, some lightning fulgurites, if you look at pictures of them, some are hollow.
Yeah, hollow. I mean, hollow. Yeah.
Some are hollow. Some are, like very hollow. Where there's thin walls and they're, most of the volume on the inside is open. And then there's some where there's little passages that go through the fulgurite, and then there's other fulgurites that just look like masses. The question one might ask about these caves here is, why are they empty? Shouldn't there be maybe gold or minerals in there?
Maybe it was scratched by somewhere. Who knows?
I've been thinking about that and wondering, well, maybe they're duds. Maybe there was a pocket of air down in there when the plasma struck the ground and created a dud, or there was water there, or something like that. Because here in a little bit, I'm going to get into how the directed energy weapon, the plasma of that creates ore in the first place, creates silver and creates gold, and it does it by creating fulgurites. And so it makes me wonder and ask, well, was there gold in these caves at one time, and did they mine them out? But if you look at the inside of these caves, they don't really look like they're mined out. So to me, they look like they're empty. So that's why I wonder if they're just they're duds of some sort. Uh,
Maybe it depends on the quality of the charge and the compound itself, because if the compound doesn't have any particles, maybe it doesn't shape this way.
yeah, exactly. Something like that. Is every zapping of the ground to create ores, is it 100% perfect and nothing ever goes wrong? Maybe those are the ones that went wrong. I don't know.
Maybe they do this discharge and then see if something happens. If they have the results they want, they do mining. If they don't have them, they see these empty tunnels and that's it. So who knows?
Yeah. Like this picture here, this is a guy in a cave in Australia, and this is the Fulgurite on the bottom. But if you just kind of use your imagination and make this lightning Fulgurite much, 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 much bigger, and you kind of stood inside of it, it would look like a cave. Again, I think we looked at that one already. That's just another example of it. This is a cave in Chile. Um, and this is copper slag on the bottom, and it looks very similar to me. Like, is that whole pile of material there that this cave is in, is it a big giant pile of copper slag?
Are you aware of blue blood theory, that it contains the particles of copper dioxide, and it has like blue color, and you're talking about mining copper right now with the blue, so it's oxidized copper probably.
Something like that. I mean, I'm not well versed on the issues of you know oxidization and leaching and all the different things. But copper does have a lot of blue color in it and a lot of green in it. So it's very possible it's copper related. And here's another picture. And if you remember back when I showed you the World Trade Center complex, you can kind of see it's right there. Is this hole right there, is that the dew beam carved that little spot out right there? And then what earlier was it up there and it carved that little hole out right there? It's hard to say. Oh, there you go. There's the World Trade Center compared to that. Obviously the World Trade Center, that's another, whoops, what happened to that? Another big discussion, but World Trade Center complex turned to dust in just a matter of seconds. And the way that it turned to dust in a matter of seconds is that the laser ablated it to dust in seconds. And that is maybe like the final spot where the laser stopped. And that's where it ended.
So you think it was from underneath or from where?
I think the laser come from the top down. I think the directed energy weapon is in the dome. I think it moves around up there. They put it over the top of it. They direct the laser to wherever they want it to go. They set the parameters for the laser, whether they want it to shake the ground or whether they want to burn it up or whether they want to knock it down a little bit or whether they want to completely turn it to dust. And for that one, they turned it to dust.
So like a self-demolition system in a building, right?
Say that again?
Self-demolition system.
Well, at the time that the laser turned the tower to dust, the outside structure, the lattice work on the outside of the World Trade Center complex was cut into pieces with cutter charges. Because if you look at some of the videos of the towers collapsing, you can see the cutter charges coming out horizontally to the building. And so it was a combination of the directed energy weapon turning the towers to dust and cutter charges cutting the outside facade. And there was also cutter charges going off in the basement and different parts of the building trying to cut the big superstructure vertical columns that ran through the place. And if you think about a 100 and whatever tall story building falling down, straight down, there should have probably been a debris pile 30, 40 stories tall. But if you look closely at ground zero, and that's the reason why they didn't want people to go to ground zero and take pictures and look around, is because you see there wasn't even one story of a debris pile there. It was all turned to dust, and the only thing that was really left were the outside pieces.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
very interesting. The directed energy weapon is used for many things. It's not just creating craters and volcanoes and faking volcano eruptions. They use the directed energy weapon to burn down towns, destroy skyscrapers, and do all kinds of nasty things, unfortunately. I think that's kind of all I got right there for...
I think you missed something with gold.
Oh, yeah, I got stuff on gold.
Yeah.
Well, let me kind of backtrack if you don't mind.
It would be great if you just reconnect one more time. Just shut down all your browsers, and yeah, finally.
Oh, I'm gonna have a flow chart for this.
Just come back, go back to, yeah.
Now are we good or no?
Yeah, and open it in this viewer. So.
No.
No. Just double click the image and you open it in this viewer, and just enlarge it full screen, and that's it.
Is that right?
Just double click on any image you want to share us, and yes, that's fine.
Are we all good now?
Yeah.
Okay. I threw some pictures together to kind of go over real quick what the Earth is and how they create the gold and silver. My thought on the Earth is that the Earth is actually flat and it's a ball. We live on a flat plane on the inside of a ball, and outside of the ball that is Earth is water. The question becomes, well, what powers this thing? I think it's a torus field of some sort. The next question would be, what powers this torus field? Oh, wait, I got these a little bit out of order. Here's a bottle with plants living in it that's been sealed allegedly by this guy for 40 years, and these plants just keep going and going because the water recirculates itself in there. And that's kind of the way Earth works. We're inside of I think a quartz dome both on the top and the bottom with the flat plane in the middle, and we live on top of the flat plane on our side, and the water is a water cycle where the water moves around and goes up and comes down inside this glass ball. Now the flat plane, we're somewhere around the middle, I believe, and Antarctica is a wall that goes around this. And I think outside in this area over here is where our controllers actually live.
Okay.
Now, if you think about what powers this thing, well, it could be something mechanical or something electrical or something that someone created that powers this thing, or that's kind of the idea of a torus field. This would be in the middle there. That'd be your northern lights coming down.
Let's just pause for a second. Come back one picture with the torus field, because there's a question in the chat. Philip, you was telling stop spreading the parasites. I was saying that this dome unit, right? And it has like this field of protection right now. This is what's stopping. Actually, this is energetic. You calling it a torus field, but actually it's energy that's stopping everyone inside to spread outside, right?
That too. I think the energy flows inside the wall of the dome, kind of like maybe a double pane glass kind of an idea, or something. I don't know if everybody understands quartz and quartz watches and how they work and stuff. By the way, this top picture there, that's an image from the movie The Hunger Games, where she's shooting an arrow up toward the dome there, and it reveals these structures there. When I first saw that, I thought, oh, it looks like quartz.
Looks like a beehive, hexagonal shape.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, if you kind of look into quartz, what you'll find that if you press quartz together, it creates electrical energy. Now, my idea is that the Earth sits in water, and we all know that the deeper you go in water, the more water pressure that you have on you. Like in a submarine, when a submarine goes way down there, there's a lot of water pressure on all sides of the hull of that submarine. So imagine a big quartz sphere deep under the water with all the water pressure on it. And I'm thinking maybe it's that water pressure pressing on the quartz creates piezoelectric energy that flows through this structure, and that is what powers the torus field.
Yeah, with tension, obviously, and that could actually explain the pressure of the gases, the mud, everything that's underneath. When you drill a hole, you have it under pressure there.
That's very possible. I have some ideas about water under the ground and things like that. I think the flat Earth has some plumbing in there. But looking into this piezoelectricity idea, I'm just kind of new to looking into it, and so I'm by no means an expert at it. But it seems to me that the compression of all this quartz on the whole Earth, can it generate the electricity to run the Earth itself? And maybe it does, but I'm in the early stages of looking at that. And all right, so we got this Earth structure, and wait, let me go back over here. And in this Earth structure, we have the directed energy weapon. The picture on the right is a drawing basically of a laser ablation chamber where the laser goes through a quartz window, and it strikes the object to be ablated, and they sometimes do it in a vacuum. Imagine the same idea where the quartz dome of the Earth is the quartz window of the laser, and the laser moves around on the Earth. It can move around and target whatever location on the Earth that it wants to create fulgurites, giant fulgurites, like the Grand Canyon, which we're going to get into here in a second. This is the Grand Canyon there on the in the picture in the upper right, and it kind of looks like a lightning bolt, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And the reason it looks like a lightning bolt is because that's what it was. A giant bolt of plasma struck the ground, ripped through the ground, morphed the material that was in the ground, creating fulgurites, and inside these fulgurites is gold and silver and copper and things of that nature. Here are some pictures of the Grand Canyon, a very beautiful place. And if you just kind of look at it, this kind of looks like a lightning bolt. Kind of looks like a fulgurite, because obviously a fulgurite sort of looks like a lightning bolt. that's very interesting. That's a vein of quartz. And we know that gold loves quartz, right? So quartz is also created by plasma strikes. There's just a few more examples. This is a bottom picture. There is a lightning strike on a, I think it might be a sidewalk, but it's cement of some sort. And man, it looks almost like the Grand Canyon.
There's a question. Does the electricity come from within or from outside when you have this discharge?
Well, my guess would be that the electricity flowing through the dome itself, the maybe piezoelectricity that then circles around and comes in through the top and through the bottom, I think that's where the energy comes from. And it is somehow directed to the laser and shot down onto the planet. This bottom picture here, that's artificial electricity. That's a fulgurite created by artificial electricity. So we know we can artificially create fulgurites. So maybe the ancient miners artificially created their fulgurites.
What is the actual power needed to get this?
I don't know the details of that, but people do this at their houses and in their garages. So
okay,
it's within reach of ordinary people. I think to do something on a large scale, that's
so it's just a question of knowledge, probably not the material or something expensive or something like this.
No, I think to do big ones, you got to have a generator and things like that. But obviously, to create a Grand Canyon, you're going to need something really big, like the power of the Earth itself.
Have you heard of any experiments in current mining of creating something like this?
No. No, I call this directed energy weapon alchemy. Alchemy, is the search of, how to turn, lead into gold, for example. And there exists alchemy, and it's alchemy. It's directed energy weapon alchemy. It's the plasma coming out of the directed energy weapon that actually creates gold and copper and silver and things of that nature. Here is a comparison of copper from Nevada to a fulgurite. And to me, it looks pretty darn close. Here's another comparison of copper to fulgurites. Now, one interesting thing about copper is, if you were to Google search copper and just look at pictures of copper, you'll see copper looks like a lot of different things. This copper here they call native copper, and it's kind of like the original copper, right? But most of the copper mines, most of the mining that we do today, we're not really mining pieces of that like that. Those pieces that look like that, those very rare. A piece like that costs thousands of dollars possibly. The prices of native ores are very expensive because you don't find them. Most of the mining that we do today, where we mine for copper, we're not actually mining for that kind of copper because it doesn't really exist. We are mining the waste piles of the ancient miners that originally mined the copper fulgurites. And when they processed those fulgurites, they created waste material and they piled them up. And the mining that goes on today, those large-scale copper mines that you see photos of and stuff, those are modern-day man mining the waste piles created from the mining and the processing of ore by the ancient miners. Only now and then do people find actual native pieces of gold or silver or things of that nature. Usually it's, I think I got a picture coming up here. It's contained in rocks. that have tiny little particles of the ore of the copper or the gold or whatever in it. And there's just a few more comparisons here. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to show you a fulgurite made by lightning that looks like copper because they're not the same thing. A fulgurite is what it results in depends on what the starting material was when it was at by plasma. And so they're not going to look exactly the same, but the point is they look similar because they morph themselves into a lightning bolt kind of a structure.
Mm-hmm.
Now sometimes because all fulgurites don't always just look like lightning bolts or pieces of lightning bolts. Sometimes they look like pressed material, a material that's been hammered to paper thin. In this example, it's a piece of natural copper compared to laser ablation. When you look at certain laser ablations, you'll see that it creates a certain patterns. And if you compare these two patterns, to me, they look pretty similar. The picture here on the upper right, that is they now call it trinitite, which is a new word they made up. That is allegedly from the detonation of the first atomic bomb, and that is the melted sand or the melted ground that was underneath the atomic bomb when it allegedly exploded. And
so this is from the test site.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you were to look very closely at the Trinity nuclear test, you'll see that it's all fake. On Facebook, I have a post about that. But this is allegedly a piece of the ground there, and of course, it looks just like laser ablation because there are no nuclear weapons. The real weapon is the directed energy weapon. They want you worrying about some imaginary fake nuclear weapon, while on the other hand, they're using the real weapon on everyone. This is a piece of gold. Gold loves quartz, but not always quartz, but gold does love quartz. And I think the reason why gold and quartz go together is because whatever material that the directed energy weapon is striking to create the gold also creates quartz at the same time. That's a lightning fulgurite on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how the inside of that fulgurite almost looks a little quartzy, because kind of that's what it is, a little bit. Because it's very possible the sand on the beach that the lightning struck is this material right here that's in this gold that was processed out of all the gold and is now the sand in the deserts. So this is very possibly, this fulgurite here is a double zapped piece of material where it was originally zapped and turned into quartz, zapped again by a bolt of lightning, turning into this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just kind of compare, pieces of natural gold to fulgurites, you'll see that they just kind of look the same. And they're not going to look exactly the same because, one is obviously gold and the other is something else. But their structures are very similar.
Yeah, patterns and shapes are randomly similar. I would say
that's a really good way to put it. Now here's an interesting thing. A while back, I discovered that there's 3D images of caves.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to talk about. Exactly this picture.
Yeah, so here I am. I got into caves a while back, and I started to look at all of them, and then I ran into this thing, and I'm like, doesn't that really look interesting? Because it looks like a piece of gold.
Yeah, guys, this is a large cave system, a 3D map, like New Mexico, right?
Yeah. So it got me wondering and thinking, all right, so that cave, if I'm right about this, and it's an electric cave, a plasma-created cave, and it made that formation, which looks kind of lightning-like, doesn't it? How about the idea that there were actually pieces of gold that were that big? Because I think there was. I think the ancient miners, they mined big pieces of gold. There could have been natural gold, if you will, that were miles long. And it just strikes me that those two, that cave and that piece of gold, for all practical intents and purposes, look the same. They're just a little different in their layout.
Yeah, looks like really natural patterns, but actually they could be created the way Mike says.
Yeah, so I'm kind of imagining. Okay, so the directed energy weapon hits the ground and it creates this giant gold fulgurite, right? And then they get in there with their hoses and they're spraying it all down, and this coal is going to be connected probably to quartz, and then they start breaking those chunks out of it, right? And they dig it out, and then they got to process it. So I'm imagining that back then they wouldn't have had like ore processing factories here and ore processing factories there. They probably had mobile units where they were just mining the earth mobily. And after they pull the fulgurites out, they got to get that gold off of that quartz, right? And it's not always quartz. Sometimes it's other materials that gold is intermingled with. And I think they use this directed energy weapon again, and they get that quartz off of there. And then that quartz, I think, is what becomes the sand that we see around the world.
Yeah, somebody says it looks like a nerve system. Well,
Yeah.
it looks, but we have to research it more because there's a lot of evidence that the tissue type of patterns in these rocks. So we should research it more. And either way, it does represent that evidence of mining was existent. The mining on large scale. Either way, it was created by the discharge, or it was like a living creature nerve system. Who knows? Or it was a giant tree root system.
I mean, anything's possible, but I think the electricity and electrical things, they span the gap. They can everything's kind of electrical. So I think the patterns of electricity can be seen in trees, tree leaves, and all kinds of different things. I mean, if you take in the wintertime, if you look at trees, you'll see that it kind of imagine them coming down as opposed to going up. They look exactly like lightning bolts.
Yeah, all the life patterns could be electric because we have the power fields around us, so-called I would say natural fields, right? So it could be measured by some devices, and so
Yeah. This is what I threw in here. Is what I threw in for fun. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie called Dune. It come out in 1984, where they mine spice from this planet Arrakis, and this is a picture of that planet. And what's kind of interesting is I don't know, and I don't know a lot about this topic yet, but it's something I want to get into. Is there's something called ormus, which is monoatomic gold. And this monoatomic gold is something that you can take into your body, and that it's a super
enhancer.
And that allows you to kind of live a long time, to rebuild yourself, and to have increased mental capabilities. And if you kind of look into that, a lot of people say that you can, see in the future and all kinds of stuff with this stuff, but I don't know anything about that yet. But something tells me there's something about gold, and monoatomic gold, that is what makes gold so sought after. And
I don't know if you have heard about this Anunnaki Sumerian stuff. They were talking about these ancient miners. They were mining gold and adding this gold into their blood or something. So it kind of
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I think
This story is old, but this story is also looks like very fake because it's like a cherry picking facts story. So who
yeah.
knows actually?
Well, what these ancient people, I just call them ancient miners, or I call them the controllers, because I don't really know what they were called. I would guess all the things that we hear about all these different peoples. My guess would be none of them are the right name. But somewhere out there, there's people that have done this, and I'm thinking gold is more than just gold to make rings with. I think it has everything to do with monoatomic gold and why they want it, and why
Yeah.
they build Earths in the first place, and why they go to all this trouble is to get
And
gold.
so they ask where those miners go, where they are, where this equipment, everything. Like we don't see anything, and so when the mining site is over, miners go to another site. So it's easily explained and take all the equipment with them, and who actually knows? Maybe they have some spare parts. I was showing those spare parts from the ancient ball mill grinding. That I'm gonna be showing a little bit later. So when you finish it up,
I My
have you
guess
seen
is,
any evidence of any equipment maybe in those?
well, I was just going to sort of talk about that a little bit.
Okay,
I I don't really see evidence of equipment. I mean, there are places around the world where you can see things that look like parts of machines and stuff like that. I think the ancient miners were a super efficient system where they mined with water and they mined with the directed energy weapon. The directed energy weapon, I think, did the processing of the ore. So I'm not seeing tons of machines. I'm seeing a lot of hoses, and I'm seeing areas where maybe they create to put the material in that then, uh, uh, like the directed energy weapon coming down on the tower, comes down on that material, uh, cooks it, melts it, transposes it, removes the quartz, makes the quartz run out and away from the gold, for example, when the gold is left remaining. I don't really see a lot of equipment. Because I think with the directed energy weapon, I think you can easily crush rocks, melt things, because kind of that's what they do in mining is they break stuff up, they melt it. And then there's also, processes where they add chemicals and they leach things
yeah,
and they
yeah,
do things like that. And that could also come into play. But I'm thinking the ancient miners did it on a very different in a very different fashion than we do.
yeah. I think it's like a party. So they send this party. They have this intelligence everywhere, drilling holes, checking the area, maybe scanning with something. So it's like very cheap but effective procedures. Like small groups of miners do this intelligence, tell exact places where they should start this bombardment of directed energy or whatever they use, and then they arrive in the huge teams, and those teams are actually as efficient as you can say, and they don't leave any equipment behind.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Um, Now, it's also very possible, like, because if you think about, like, when I started to really look at the Grand Canyon and I started to think about things, it's like, well, if you look at Mount Everest, and somewhere I have a picture of Mount Everest coming up in here if we get to it. If you think about the point of Mount Everest as being the original top layer of the Earth, and then you consider where the altitude of that compared to that of the Grand Canyon, and I think there's a huge difference. I think what might have happened is when they use the directed energy weapon to zap the surface of the earth to create things, to create this gold and to create these fulgurites and the copper and stuff. I think they did it on multiple levels. I think they zapped the original surface of the earth, mined it out, zapped it again, mined it out. As making the levels go down, zapped it again, mined it out. So there might have been multiple layering in the and as far as the formations of the fulgurites and stuff like that, and they may have been mining for actually a long time. It's hard to say.
probably coming back when maybe some reactions. Maybe they drill a hole, put some chemicals in it, create some reaction before they need it. So be preparing, and then it's just maybe a question of time when they return to make another drilling or making another energy strike. Who knows?
Uh,
Because these Japanese guys, they started growing the concrements on the sea bottom. So like and vacuuming in those concrements from the sea bottom with those vacuum sucking those concrements inside and filtering them.
yeah.
Those little concrements from make aluminum, gold, iron ore, whatever. Because all this water density and pressure creates those particles to condense on the bottom, like in the greaves or something. So it's like harvesting the metals from the bottom of the sea.
When you say concrements, are you talking about like gold nuggets, like laying under the on the bottom of the ocean in Alaska, where they go down there with the hoses?
Yeah, little balls of certain metals, like little spherical particles.
I'm not sure what those are exactly, but
and concrements is just what you get in your kidneys, because it's water and it's coming from your kidneys, and you have those concrements, and they grow little rocks, and actually this is you filtering. Kidneys are filtering your water, your liquid, and you grow those concrements in your kidneys. I had those concrements once.
I had a couple kidney stones myself, and
yeah, very painful.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody. The two most painful experiences of my life, I tell you.
Who passed these things knows how a woman is giving birth to a kid.
One nurse told me when I was in there that she's had like 5 kids and a couple kidney stones, and she said that the kidney stones were way worse.
Yeah, probably
childbirths, and I believe her, because what I went through was extreme pain.
And coming back to your presentation.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, we were talking about like the layers and stuff, and putting the chemicals and things in there. I think when they originally built the Earth, you got this torus energy field going on, and I think they filled it up kind of like a powder coating, and they brought material inside into the Earth, and then they probably did layers of material. Maybe you get like, imagining they're filling up the flat ground now, and you get a layer of this material, and then a layer of some other material, and then a layer of another material, and then a layer of another material. Then you let it cure. Maybe the pressure of those different layers start to squeeze the layers that are down below. Maybe they add certain chemical substances to these layers, and then over time they cure. And maybe they turn the heat up in the planet and they bake it like a cake in the oven. And then they come back in and they zap it with the dew, creating the different elements. And then I think they might.
And that's definitely not with the not with the free access from the inhabitants. So those guys are definitely not asking anyone here.
No,
they're doing what they're doing, and we're just watching. That's it.
Yeah. Here's a picture of a natural silver compared to a fulgurite, and they just kind of look silver. This is laser ablation compared to silver crystals. Looks pretty similar. Like I said before, the ancient miners use hydraulic mining techniques. This is from the California gold rush. Like if you look at this is a picture of Mount Everest compared to the hydraulic mining in California, and if you just use your imagination a little bit and enlarge the scale of the bottom photo to Mount Everest, it looks pretty similar. And one thing, where did they get the water and the water pressure from to hydraulically mined? I think there was an opening in the earth, and that's where the water came through, and it came down in tremendous pressure, which allowed them to then carve out the fulgurite that was the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon in the beginning was a fulgurite. And if you look at the walls of the Grand Canyon, you'll see that it looks like hydraulic mining. So the Grand Canyon both looks like a lightning bolt, because that's what created it, and it looks like mining too at the same time, because it's a mined out lightning bolt. And here are just a few examples of the Grand Canyon versus hydraulic mining.
Yeah, guys, you can see it's exactly the same patterns and traces.
Yeah. Now, a lot of my comparisons, you really have to kind of look at them and zoom in on them and study them for a while and let them sink into your eyeballs for a minute or two, and just kind of look at the shapes and the different structures. They're not always in the same place. They're not always identical, but the structures are the same. And they're just at a different location, different proportions, but it's always there. I mean, you just have to ask yourself, how could a river carve that canyon out and do it in that fashion? I live right next to the Mississippi River, which is a big, powerful river, and it flows here forever. And the Mississippi River never cuts a hole in the earth. It's just in the same spot every year, year after year. The only thing that changes is when it's raining and flood season, the water levels change, and that's it. So if you look at the Grand Canyon a little bit, it looks exactly like hydraulic mining. You know, this area down there, that's, you know, where the California Gold Rush went on. That's a famous place that's now a state park.
Mm-hmm.
Mining, 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 mining. Now, if you want, I'll show you just a real quick if you want. This is hydraulic mining, and they're going to create a cave here in a minute. I'll just skip forward a little bit. And right here coming up. Yeah, right here. Right, just like that, instant cave. Because that becomes relevant, because I'm going to show you a cave in the Grand Canyon that looks just like that. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Now, these little markings right there that you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor very well, these little things. That's just a telltale sign of hydraulic mining. So somewhere a long time when they were carving out the Grand Canyon, somebody sat there with that hose and set it and let it run there for a while and carved out that cave right there. See, this one's a good one where it shows you these stripes that are right there. I mean, what are the odds? Water is a...
Yeah, and officials confirmed the ancients were having this hydraulic mining since like Roman times. So
Now, as far as the whole, this is a very interesting picture here to think about. The whole, you know, did the Romans really create that site in Spain? I don't really think they did. I think that's also the work of the ancient miners. I don't believe for a second that the Romans did that. Now, one thing that I kind of noticed after a while, after looking at this stuff, is, isn't it interesting that the Grand Canyon looks like Mount Everest? Kind of the same. what this structure in the Grand Canyon there is basically a Mount Everest. water eroded away all that material and created that shape. So they're basically the same. Now, if one was to, I wonder what material's inside of there. Maybe that would give us a starting point to kind of figure out what material they used to create the gold in the first place.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I hope that's not what it sounds like, Mike.
No, that's all fake. Now, like I think I said earlier on this, today we mine the mining piles of the ancient miners.
Yeah.
If you look at this copper mine, and you see off to the side here these seals right there, that's mining waste. Those are copper mining waste piles right there. And this whole site, they're mining the waste piles of the ancient miners. And then mines like this, they're not finding pieces of copper. Not that they couldn't find a piece of native copper in there, but most of it, the vast majority of it, is all tiny pieces of copper. And if you ever watch any of those gold mining shows on the Discovery Channel and stuff, you'll see that a lot of the gold gets away, and that there's gold particles that get away in the sluicing of that gold, and then they end up in the waste rock of those gold miners. And the same thing happens with copper. When they're mining those copper fulgurites, they don't get every piece of copper, and then the waste rocks that they created mining out that fulgurite becomes the waste piles that we mine today. And if you move enough dirt, you'll find copper, and that's what we do today.
Yeah, the larger the scale, the larger the particles. So for them, they were just a small byproduct, small particles that they didn't care about.
Yes.
And for us, it's just huge natural, formation, concrements, whatever you call them.
Yeah, like here, well, let's see, how big do they say? 12 centimeters. This piece of copper right there is 12 centimeters. That's it. And that thing costs $850. That's how rare native copper is. We don't mine native copper. Native copper, if you got a piece of native copper, it's worth a lot of money. We mine the stuff on the bottom row of pictures here.
Mm-hmm.
These rocks here that have copper in them is the mining waste of the original copper production in the world.
It's a petrified solution from the previous mining.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because no ore extraction is perfect. There's always pieces of ore that get away.
Yeah, it's just the official narrative right now, guys. Just check the miners magazines or websites. You find a bunch of articles and bunch of topics about how to make this scratching of byproducts more efficient, how to waste less byproducts and stuff like this. So to increase the productivity of this miserable mining that we do right now.
Yeah. In this picture here, like in California during the gold rush, these miners were placer miners, and they mined little pieces of the gold on the sides, down here below there. What they were really mining is just the scraps that were left by the mining of the original fulgurite that ran through this area here. Even though I had put gold nuggets in there to represent the gold, what I should put in there is a gold fulgurite running through there from one end to the other. And so the stuff that we mine today, where you might find a piece of natural gold, would be some of these places where they're mining. But mostly, I believe they find gold nuggets, which are little pieces broken off of the original fulgurite.
Could they just leave those parts for it to grow in the future? Maybe it's just some type of like seeding the gold for the future, for saving for the future. Who knows?
No, I don't think so. I think the plasma creates it. I don't think it actually grows. If gold was wow, I
Like
hope
fun, like
we'll push
fungus,
me through like
fungus
a
and stuff
seed.
like
Wouldn't
this.
that be great? Give me some gold trees in the yard.
I mean, when you cut the mushrooms in the forest, you leave those little parts of the mushrooms. Then you come back in a couple of days, you see more mushrooms there. So,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe this is also like natural type of patterns of reassembling in the future. Maybe containing like if this is a closed, containment that is supposed to gather some resources. And what are the resources? The resources are the biosphere that is dying and is circling through this cycle of what we have inside. And so maybe we are like the particles that are being collected into the groups, and and combine, creating those veins of enormous materials and metals and anything.
my guess would be that the mining is over by the ancient miners. I would guess they would be coming back. I said earlier I think that they kind of zapped, mined, zapped some more, mined some more, and I think they got down to the bottom. I think there's an end to the game, and my guess is that we're at the end of that, and the reason why we're here is, and I think I mentioned this the last time we spoke, that we farm for them and we mine for them, and we're here to get the last scraps of the mining, and we're here to farm for them because they live. I think I forget if I mentioned this earlier today, but
Yeah, you showed the map. Yeah.
yeah, I think they live out that way, and we farm for them. So the Earth is kind of a system. They build it, they mine it, they set it up to where they can sit back like fat cats, and we do their chores for them.
Hmm.
Then my guess would be the same company or whatever that built this Earth probably is building the next one right now as we speak.
We have like not very much time, so let me just screen share what I was supposed to show you and the rest of the people. Just shut down your screen share. Okay. Yep. Stop screen sharing. Let's see. So I was showing the ancient bow, grinding bow mills. So it's like also probably concerning the recycling of huge numbers of byproducts. And so we can find those here, how the mill looks like.
Oh, yeah,
So it's like rotating, and all this ore inside is being milled. And these are like laboratory um, laboratory bowl mill. And those bowls looks exactly like you can find those near the Bosnian pyramids.
Yeah.
So it's like there are a bunch of bowls there. So I was thinking if those bowls are just the bowls from those huge meals that they used before,
Yeah.
because those bowls are getting little deformations, because while they're like perfectly round, and after several maybe months they turn to be like smaller and smaller and smaller, and so they throw those deformed bowls away and put the new ones in. Okay, so it's like eternal procedure of grinding everything they got, and so they separate the precious metals from these rocks that they grind. This is separators, as you can see. So the smaller the particle, and it falls down below, and this is how they do it. And so you have the powder full of what you need. So it's easy to extract it from this powder than it is from the pure rock. Okay. So this is how it looks. This is actual mining site, and they use this ball mill in grinding processes. Okay, another evidence. Let's see. I was showing about different formations like this, and so they look like the fountains of petrified mud that came from underground, and so it was like drying and petrifying after. And also those type of structures, you cannot just explain them only like a fountain of petrified mud. And it has a layer structure, so just like a flow, if that was not a very large hole where the drill stuff comes out, so it would be liquefying and spreading like these layers, and so when it dries out, probably those layers would be separated. So these are like fountains of all this stuff that was petrified before. And this is the inside. It looks like this exactly. So it's like the concrements and the concrete pasta type of thing that comes out from underneath. And it's when it dries out, it looks exactly like this. So it's like mattress type of layers. Also, I was talking about the pyramid, the Great Pyramid Complex in Giza, and it has this, let's see, has these blueprints. And so there was an idea that this is a chemical factory because the river of Nile is not very far, and it contains a bunch of aluminum in it, in this mud. So that could be the byproducts of the chemical factory. It has all these shapes for the chemical solutions, and the pyramids themselves could be the dischargers or the electricity plasma generators that you were talking about, so they can be powering up all these procedures. So it all looks like a huge plant of chemicals, and it has these structures that look like previously the channels where all those solutions were poured in, and the reactions were, so all those chambers look technical, and they have the marks from the shots that could be used to shut down the flow, regulate with some type of doors, little doors in the channels, so they can regulate the flow. So all these patterns look like the parts of previous gates or doors for those chemical reaction flows.
Yeah, I mean, that's very possible. I mean,
so
in modern mining, they use a lot of chemicals to cause interactions to separate materials and get the good stuff.
And that picture that I think you also were commenting on it. So it looks like a technological hole, and so there was like a flow here of some chemicals that could be melting those stairs. Who knows?
Yeah, it's possible.
And those doors are actually not just the doors, but for the chemicals also, because they have like this shutdown door, like making it hermetic, I would say. Basalt floor has a black color, so probably it was used to heat up the solution above it, so it can vaporize in some salts or probably metal concrements. After the solution is vaporized, you can easily collect it from this black basalt floor. So plenty of chambers, plenty of channels around it, plenty of technological type of structures like this. So
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah, there's more to mining than just pulling the rock out of the ground. You got to process it, and that involves a lot of different complex procedures and interactions.
yeah, and also very interesting is let's see, dehydration. Dehydration is one of the modern ways of mining. So they use those tubes, geotube mining, is it called?
Yep.
So they pump this liquid into those tubes, and then it's like getting separated via some certain physical properties, and so they have the byproduct left in the tubes, and all the metals are actually being mined, being collected. So that's why I was thinking about those megalithic blocks, rocks, and stuff like this that we have right now without any any distance between them. So those geotubes actually can be dissolved in a couple of years. So they totally dissolve, and you won't find anything except that petrified concrete. And so those walls exactly will look exactly like megalithic block walls.
Yeah, I can think of some landforms that if you turn that into rock-looking material, that would look just like it.
Yeah, and those, as you can see, these little nipples here could be used to use the vibrator. They use the vibrators to put them inside so they can vibrate, and more stuff comes out. It's like more efficient way to suck the stuff out of those geotubes.
Ah,
Okay, and that vibrator is also used in concrete, and concrete gets hardened and stiffened faster if you use vibrators. Okay, so another one is
that's an interesting way to explain those little things.
yeah, another one is let's see, block cave mining. So this is how they do it actually. Let me show it to you. So they dig a little, like a tunnel or something here, and they know let's see, they know the metals are somewhere right here where you see the explosion here. So they drill it here, make it the way so it can collapse into this, so those channels be used to extract those precious metals, and they can work underneath. So they won't be using it is like it's not an open mining, it's an underground procedures, and it's very technological, very efficient. So original surface is going down actually, and we can see those this stuff like this
Okay.
on the surface. So that's probably why we have so many collapsed mountains and stuff like this, because the mining was proceeded not that long ago, and we still see the elements of the tracks that they left for us. Okay.
Yeah,
So
no doubt.
okay, and those holes actually could be, the evidence that they actually did drilling and did put the people there, and though they planted maybe some explosives there in those tunnels, and after that, the explosion, those tunnels getting sealed by the explosion. Okay, so that's why so many sinkholes everywhere, because all this world is being mined over and over and over again, and we use different types of mining and still performing those types of mining, and have these sinkholes everywhere, and partially they appear more and more each year, and nobody has an official explanation
Yeah,
of the nature. They say the gas bubbles and stuff like this. I know The capital of Kazakhstan, the previous capital of Kazakhstan, is the city of Almaty. It's located in Asia, in Central Asia. It's totally located on the gas mine. So everything below the city is a total bubble in the ground. So they are wondering when the city is going to collapse. So the previous president of Kazakhstan moved the capital from that city a couple of 100 miles to the north. So the capital won't be collapsing with him, of course. And they know it's going to be collapsing soon. So, but who was mining that gas before? Nobody knows, actually. So no wonder that you can find those sinkholes in the cities, because we see a bunch of those also, the drops of byproducts in the forests. In the middle of nowhere, you find this type of structures. I wouldn't say this is structure, but this is a drop of byproduct, as you can see. Nothing like this. Look around. Nothing like this. It's just out of place.
Yeah, no doubt. Looks like a volcano and a dome.
Yeah. So they just, this is not a natural form. It looks like a dump.
I'm thinking that's the directed energy weapon creating a laser ablation crater that formed that shape. But I don't know.
And look at the forest. Forest is very young. So I mean, there were no forests there before, and the forest just very, very, very young, I would say. Okay.
It's funny. I grew up in Muscatine, Iowa, and then I moved away for a long time, and then I moved back. And when I moved back, I kind of expected all the trees that I was familiar with growing up in here in town, that the trees would be bigger when I moved back. And so when I first moved back, after being gone for 25 years, I kind of looked around and go, gee, that doesn't really seem like the trees are any taller than they ever were when I was a kid. And I think what happens is trees sort of just grow a certain height and then they die. And then they don't really get overall bigger all the time. They're always in a process of one is growing, one is dying. And they always look the same year after year.
Well, I mean, we had photos of Russia that were made by officially recognized photograph. His name is Praskurin Gorsky. So he was riding around Russia and picturing it like in 1900 something, and there were no forests at all. So that kind of explains that. My mud flood theory also be some type of catastrophic event, so who knows? People cutting down all those forests for nothing. It's probably some case of something. So, and we find the trees like 150 years old, 160 years old in my area, and nothing older than that. In general, that's the oldest trees you can find, and you can measure the circles of the trees when you cut it. Those are year circles. They call it year circles. Yeah. It's a dendrochronology is based on that. So this is how they kind of prove if they find some, wood underneath the ground, some structures or maybe houses or who knows. And so they compare those circles and prove that wood was, 300 years old or something like this, because they have all those cuts from previous centuries. Yeah, it was nice. I think nice discussion, people. I hope you liked it, and maybe if we get enough questions for the next time, we will continue on the topic, because Mike has a lot to talk about, and I think I showed you a bunch of evidence too of other methods like block cave mining, uranium mining, also very interesting one. When you find those rocks in the middle of nowhere, and they have uranium particles inside.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into uranium mining, but I know it's way different than other mining. There's a lot of different ways to do all these things. And again, to everybody, I'm sorry I had some computer problems.
Yeah, now you know. Now you know. Now you know. So we should not take very long, so you won't forget it next time. So
I make no promises. I'm kind of stupid when it comes to some of these kinds of things. But Philip, it's always nice talking to you, buddy.
yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, guys, and see you later.
All
Bye.
right, Philip, you take care now. Bye.